Afternoon, everybody. It's Ron over here at Becoming Enlightened Together. I have another rune reading for today, and this one is relatively positive, as was yesterday's. Very, very positive, which is, you know, I'm very thankful for that, being that I typically pick up on the karmic energies and so on. That I got something that was a little less morbid, death, that kind of a thing. Unfortunately, there is a little snafu in regards to that and on that very same subject. In terms of the help and advice today, that is something it looks like the collective is going to have to prepare for. It looks like somebody that we know definitely is going to, well, in this particular case, it may not be a physical death because the entire reading is relating to the collective as a whole. It's all positive energy. Every rune is in the upright, with the exclusion of the help and advice. And this death may actually have something more to do with the death of a cycle. Although there is still the possibility it could be a real, terminal issue, because disease is also included in that very same thing. So I hope that's not the case, especially in this time. Well, any time is bad, but it is one of the certainties of life. We all have to face up to death at some point. I know that doesn't make it any easier for those of us who are experiencing it. I lost both my brother and my mother within the last year and a half, and it's very difficult. I was closest to my baby brother. The other siblings I don't get along with very well. They haven't been particularly trustworthy in my life. And, the one that I did get along with very well was the one that I lost during the COVID thing at the very closing of that cycle. And my mom I just recently lost, due to, very quick deterioration as a result of Alzheimer's and so on. And that's a terrible thing to see for those of you who have actually experienced it and gone through it too. So you have my sympathy, you have my empathy, and in the event that this is for anybody that's out there in my collective that doesn't have anybody else to talk to or just to vent with, if you need to, and I keep saying this, and I mean it, if you need to, you can reach out. There'll be no judgment, and unless you ask for it, I won't give you, advice or anything like that. I'll just listen, okay? I know it's important. We all need somebody that will hear us out sometimes. We just need to know that there are people in the world who do care, and that's what I'm doing this for. I'm not making a cent doing this. I'm spending my time doing this, hopefully to help the collective, Anyway, with the overall energy for the week until tomorrow is being Sawillo. Looks like a lightning bolt. We're not getting a lot of focus here with this camera. But basically it stands for, again, as I've always stated all day, every day this week, it's like the sun card in the tarot deck where it talks about all things bright, cheery, good, daylight, clarity versus nighttime, obscurity, so we can see clearly those things which are in front of us. Talks about victory as well, honor, achievement, goals being achieved. Talks about success. Talks about the contact with our higher self as well as our unconscious. So we have better direction, what we would think of as being intuition, or these thoughts that pop up in our head that help us give us the answers we need. That could be conceived of as being our higher self, that is more or less helping us in this three-dimensional plane of existence. And it's a complex thing, and there's many theories of how all this works, so I don't want to get into that now, but it's fascinating, and someday I hope to make some videos on these things. Alright, so what else does it talk about? It talks about the elemental forces, power. It talks about, a cleansing state, a cleansing fire, removing all of past karma and debts and curses and so on. So it's a very, very positive room. Now the past what we got was Berkana, and this time Berkana is in the upright. Berkana in the upright is basically the rune for the goddess Birchta, who is the great mother or birch goddess, if you will. So she speaks of things such as, birth, purity, fertility. Talks about, physical, spiritual growth. Talks about liberation, the regenerative force of renewal, promise of new beginnings. Talks about a love affair and the arousal of desire. So we're seeing a lot of that action too. Yes, we're seeing things about death. That is true. But we're also seeing a lot about new birth, new relationships, a spiking of passion for either a relationship you're already in or somebody new that's coming into your life. So a lot of passion coming your way. New growth, a love affair, new birth, and the proposal of a new venture or enterprise. So perhaps some of you are thinking about starting up a website like we've talked about in the past. I would say if you have any thoughts on that whatsoever, even if it's just a fleeting thought once in a while, do it. I did this in the midst of being homeless. You can do it. It's not easy and it takes time, takes, energy and effort, but I would strongly suggest you to do that. And there are many different ways in which you can do this and make money from it if you wish. Me, I want to be more of a help. I want to do it as unselfishly as I can. I try to separate mammon from spirituality. I am going to make other videos in which I will probably make money doing it. It will be more of an educational thing. This is just my way of helping the collective. Okay. Now, with that being said, our present energy is that of Yera. Okay. And Yera too is in the upright in this case. And Yera in the upright talks about harvest time, a time where you are reaping the fruits of all of your previous labor. Now, we're talking about, karma and dharma. So we're talking about the positive aspect or dharma in most cases through this energy because it is in the upright and we are talking to the collective. So I presume you are not in low vibrational energy and doing things, to lie, cheat, steal, and things of that nature. That you're doing the very best you can to be, as productive a human being as you can be and to better yourself in all ways that you can. And taking the time to do your spiritual, physical cleansing and, just becoming more aware, deeply spiritual and things of that nature. So it talks about success, rewards, a time of peace, breakthroughs in any form of stagnation. Talks about your hopes and expectations being realized. Talks about the promise of earned income or earned success, I should say. So that could be in the form of a raise. It could be, in the form of starting a new enterprise like the previous room talked about. But it says it will be successful. And it talks about the different types of cycles that we all experience in this world, in this lifetime. And that means, the individual or life cycle that we experience. In other words, like every moon cycle, the menstrual cycles of a woman. We have cycles in terms of the seasons of the year and everything else in the world. And there are cycles, that expand outward in terms of the macrocosm. You have the micro and the macro, the smallest to the biggest, so as above, so below kind of a thing. I mean, we see that echoed in all of science as well as all spirituality and the Hermetic belief systems and so on and so forth. Now, as far as our obstacles and challenges, what we have is Ingwas. Now, this is the god Freyr's rune, okay? He's also referred to as Ing. This is why Ingwas is his rune. Now, Freyr is the twin brother of the goddess Freya, who's the consort of Odin himself. Now, he is the great earth god, um, and the energy for this talks about heroism, uh, your potentiality. And this doesn't mean just because, he's a man or what have you, or masculine god, that it only refers to, you know, men that are out there. It could be anybody, basically. So these attributes and traits and characteristics I'm speaking of, they basically are reflective of the collective in general, okay? It's non-masculine or feminine in this regard, although some of these attributes may indeed be more masculine, um, you know, ordinarily. It talks about a sense of freedom, and that could be freedom with your, ability to travel, freedom financially, freedom spiritually, freedom with your health. Freedom comes in many, many different guises. So it talks about the conclusions of certain cycles and so on. Consequences, again, your dharma and your karma. It talks about, again, fertility. It talks about internal growth, your common virtues and simple strengths. It talks about la familia, family love, common sense, human warmth, the home, the family, if you will. It talks about a time of rest. It talks about a time of relief. It talks about a time when there is little to no anxiety, and that all loose ends are being tied off. So, in our help and advice, it's the only one that we got basically in the reverse, and that's Kenaz. It's one of the runes I have tattooed on me. Ordinarily, it talks about creativity, creating, things of that nature, but in this particular case, it talks about the termination of something, and it talks about facing up to one's death, or facing up to death. Not necessarily those who are listening to me or the collective itself, but somebody that the collective is in some way affiliated with energetically. It talks again about disease, so it may be related in that regard. It talks about breakups, instabilities, lack of creativity, nakedness, being exposed, things done in secret are now being revealed in the open, and losing the illusion of any false hope. So again, the help and advice is basically somebody in our energetic sphere of influence is going through it, really going through it, like we've been talking about for months now. And these karmics, or these people who are basically really in a low vibrational state and have done a lot of terrible things, some of them extremely heinous, and definitely deserving of some type of justice. But we are not judge, jury, and executioner, okay? We should pray for these people, or we should understand that we have all made mistakes along the way, of course, and we continue to do so till the very day we die. And it's a growing experience, It's an experience where hopefully, our souls mature, or at least, our ability to do the right thing because of our spiritual growth here in the three-dimensional plane will become more assured. Otherwise, we are basically ungrounded, completely materialistic in the sense that, that's looked at as being, Satanism, if you will. Satanism is materialism, so to speak. So that's why it's considered to be, evil. And I'm not denying the fact that there could be a very real energetic force that may indeed be labeled as Satan. But there's more to it. We're talking about energy specifically. And if you are not grounded, and you are looking at everything from a completely materialistic standpoint, and you are completely, void of any type of spiritual aspect, in other words, having that balance between the light and the dark, then those are the people that tend to get into that type of ordeal or trouble, where almost anything is fair game because we're little more than animals. And this is the downside of the way that we're being taught in public education as far as their concept of evolution and everything else, and that we are simply biological only, and there is no other side to us. So, survival of the fittest and all of that kind of stuff. And again, that's a whole nother concept and psychology thing that I would like to look at some future point, because there's other sides to that argument that are scientific and have been echoed by many, many great intellects of the deep and ancient past, all the way to our very present, that we can use to come to a clear picture of, what we are, who we are, and so on, as far as an organism in this three-dimensional plane of existence, and how we can occupy more than one dimensionality, if you will, simultaneously. In other words, that of the 5D, the spirit realm, as well as, this materialistic three-dimensional plane of existence. All right, that's a whole nother thing. So that's our help and advice. It's just telling us to prepare for something that may not be very easy to deal with emotionally, especially if it turns out to be somebody who was close to us. But it does look, and we've been hearing it over and over and over again for months now, it is going to happen. So we've been getting a lot of advance warning, and that does help, because when you're broadsided, with a death of somebody you didn't know had any problems or difficulties or disease, that's always, very, very difficult to come to terms with, and it takes a great deal of time to process it and everything else. This is allowing you to buckle down and prepare, okay? And hopefully you know who this person is in your life, and if you don't, at least you've had the forewarning of knowing that somebody in your sphere of influence is probably going to experience this, as harsh as that is to hear. And I know how hard it is to hear, because it's hard to say, okay? Now, in the future outcome, what we have is Laguz. Laguz in the upright speaks about things of a nature of water, the water element. So we look at the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire, of course. Now there's a fifth, and that's the ether, but that's been dismissed for about the last 100 years or so. But in terms of divination, when we're talking about water, we're also talking about, well, first off, when we're talking about this, we're talking about, of course, in the materialistic sense, rivers, lakes, streams, the ocean, the flow of that medium, and leaking of that medium. And in like manner, we're also talking about what its, equivalent is in terms of the spiritual plane, which of course is your emotions. Your emotions and your intuitive abilities, especially the psychic feminine, because the feminine side of the yin and yang, if you will, masculine and feminine, the feminine is the one who's more intuitive, more psychic. Okay, and we've all heard those things, even when we're not talking about spirituality, how a mom has this link with their children, for example, and they know when they're basically, in danger or something of that nature. Now, I'm not saying that fathers don't have that ability, because they do, but those are the ones who are more in tune with both their masculine and their feminine attributes, okay? And this is why it's really important, in my opinion, to balance out those energies, to not dismiss. You're not a better person by being only masculine, or you're not a better woman if you're only feminine. It's important to embrace those qualities if that's what you are embodying, of course, in this world, but you need to balance those traits and those attributes and to be a complete or a whole human all by yourself, okay? So that's what it talks about: emotions, psychic abilities, the psychic feminine, intuition. It also talks about female fertility. It talks about the healing power and renewal. It talks about both your imagination and your ability to envision things, which is very important when you're talking about manifestation. Okay, so fantasies, mysteries, things that are hidden, the deep, the underworld. And in the Norse belief system, the underworld is not a place of torment and punishment or anything of that nature. Okay, it's a place of reflection, mostly. And it talks about both success in travel and in acquisition, but with the possibility of going overboard. And not exactly sure what that is supposed to imply, but overall, it's a very positive rune, and it tells us or reminds us to balance out our energy, male and female. Okay, so very, very positive, energetic read today. We see success that was spoken of 5 times in this reading. Achievement twice, victory twice, fertility, both masculine and feminine, twice, birth, and that could be both of a physical birth as well as an idea of some type, twice, and both love twice and abundance twice. Again, it doesn't get much better than that. So all positive things from a materialistic and a spiritual point of view. All right, that's all I've got for today. So you guys take care. God bless and enjoy your holiday. Stay victorious.